Welcome to the Gridiron Unfiltered podcast, powered by Recon Sports, the show where we take a deep dive into the world of sports performance. I'm your host, Danny Davis, and today we're going to be breaking down what really goes into building training blocks for strength and conditioning teams, what the prep looks like, what to keep in mind when progressing athletes, and all the behind-the-scenes work that makes it happen. We're also going to be diving into what high school athletes can do on their own to get better, especially when it comes to speed and on-field performance. We've got a great guest today, Coach Scott Leech, the Associate Athletic Director and Head Strength and Conditioning Coach at the University of Rhode Island. He's led the Rams performance program since 2021, is a published author, speaker, and the creator of the Gridiron Warrior training system. Coach Leech, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. All right, so let's start with this, Coach. When we're in the middle of summer right now, and I know a lot of time and thought went into building this summer training block. So let's rewind back to the spring. What does that process look like when you start preparing for that summer training block, and how do you start curating and mapping out what you're going to have your athletes be doing for the summer?
Yeah, so we take it section by section. So for us, it's, January, February, March is that winter time. March, April, May is spring ball for us at the college level. I know a lot of schools, especially down south, have spring football as well. And then your next step is that those 2 months of maybe late May, but really it's June and July, that set you up for the summer, because we start at the end of July, first week of August. For high schools, it might be a little different. You might start a little bit later, but the idea is still the same, kind of section by section. So when I start thinking ahead and say, okay, well, let's get ready for the summer, it's just like putting GPS in your car. So you want to say, okay, what's my destination first? Before you decide, all right, we're going to start driving, we're going to start doing these exercises, and we're going to do this and that. If you don't know where you're going, you're either not going to get to where you want to go, or you're going to take a really inefficient route to get there. So we want to get our guys and our team as prepared as we can to handle the rigors of preseason football. So for us, that's the month of August. It's being outside, it's being in the heat, being able to practice for 2.5 hours a day. Our preseason, we usually do 3 or 4 days in a row and then take 1 day off. So it's about getting our kids acclimated and used to that workload, coming off of a spring semester or a spring season where they only practice maybe 3 days a week. It might have been Monday, Wednesday, Friday practice, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So the first step is saying, okay, this is where I want them to be. I want them to be able to practice every day and handle that. And then I also, when we get there, want them to be fast and explosive and strong and healthy and in great shape conditioning wise. So you set that as the finish line, and then we build our program backwards from there. So depending on the number of weeks we have in the summer, that will tell us, okay, how quickly can we push this thing? Should I take the highway because we don't have a ton of time? Or do we have some time and we can kind of take the back roads and make sure we enjoy it along the way? So for us, we have
Who's in that decision-making process? Is it like the head coach kind of driving what you guys are doing? Is it you guys are driving where it is, maybe based off of where you currently are and where you want to be? Is it just maybe schedule dependent? Or all the factors kind of driving where you want to be at that GPS location?
Yeah, it's a mix of everything. I know when we get to camp, I know what that looks like because the coaches decide how many days a week they want to practice and how many days in a row and things like that. Now in the summer, a lot of it is on me on how do you get them ready. And I have a great coach that doesn't care how we do it as long as we get to the finish line and we get there the way we need to be. That being said, there are things that they do. Like we have a lot of the players will do 7-on-7 sessions where they're throwing the ball and doing those things. So I need to kind of adjust my program around some of the things that they might be doing extra or on their own time that doesn't include me. So, it's a collaborative effort. They say, hey, the kids are going to go out and they're going to do 7-on-7 3 days a week this week instead of 2. Then I need on my end to adjust some things to account for that.
Right. Right. And another thing that I don't think people realize is we're talking about like a training block, but there's also like sub training blocks within that training block for, say, different position groups, maybe training profiles. Everyone's not doing the same exact thing. You might have a few different variations in it. How is it like managing all of those different variations and different profiles or position groups and not really just having a one-size template workout that fits every athlete?
Yeah, it's such a huge thing that is challenging to do, but I think if you want to be a great coach, you need to do that. I think it's very easy. Now, if you're by yourself, you're one coach, you're at the high school level, you can treat everyone like beginners and put them all in the beginner program, and you'll be fine. For the most part, they'll be okay. 80-20 rule, right? You're going to cover 80% of the group. At my level, there's so many differences and so many nuances, and the difference between now your offensive linemen and your tight ends is bigger. The difference between your offensive linemen and your skill players is very different now. So to put them on the same program is not fair. And then the other thing is you might have two different types of kids in college. You might have a 23-year-old who's been, at a couple different schools. He's been at the Division I level, is a little banged up, a little beat up, and needs a different program. Then maybe, we just started with some of our freshmen that are 18 years old and may or may not have ever lifted a weight before in their life. So to put those two people on the same program is, again, not the best thing for the young kid and not the best thing for the old kid either. So we take a look at everybody based on who they are, how long they've been training, their position. Our big guys get different stuff than our skill guys. They're not going to run the same amount. That's not fair, especially when you're plus 300 pounds. You should not be running as much as somebody who weighs 180 pounds. So
right.
All of those things get thrown in the mix, and that's my job. That's why I'm here, is to figure out all these answers and hopefully come up with the best solution.
That's awesome. So you've been doing this job for quite a while now, or been in the strength conditioning space for quite a while. How have you seen weight rooms evolve over the past 5, 10, 15 years from really now there's so much technology being inside the weight room, GPSs, force plates, bar velocity, DEXA scans. What's your biggest observation in how the weight room has evolved in terms of technology?
Yeah, so there's so much more technology out there now. The question is it a good thing or not? I think it's a good thing in the right hands with the right people that know what they're doing and more importantly, are using it to make the athletes better. I think sometimes you see it a lot in the Power 4, the big time schools, the ones that are on TV. They're getting a new weight room every 2 years. They're getting all this technology. They're getting all these, and a lot of that is just kind of smoke and mirrors and recruiting to say, look at all these nice things that we have. And the question comes down to, like, how are you using it? Are you taking advantage of those technology, and are they helping you do a better job? So the technology stuff is great when you know how to use it and you're using it correctly. That's the big thing. We have some stuff here, but I'm always slow. I'm not, somebody asked me the other day, they said, do you have the iPads? I think a lot of schools are doing iPads, or they put the workouts on the phones now. And I'm still old school, man. We got a copy right here. We still do on the paper, pen and paper, because part of my thing is like it's nice to not bring your phone. And it's nice for like an hour and a half to hang out with your buddies. And instead of checking Twitter or Instagram in between sets, you're out here doing it the old school way. So
wow.
Part of me is a little hesitant to change, but
yeah, that'd be a huge distraction when you're in the weight room and now you're on your phone and I easily go to Twitter or easily go something like that.
Yeah, and then or even if you're not, even if you just have the iPads on the screens or on the racks and the kids are looking at their workouts on the iPad, there's something to me about weights is about metal and picking things up and putting it down. And, we did this long before phones and stuff came out, and it was about just putting in work. So part of me, that's why I'm a little anti-technology. We have a couple things, but try to really limit it unless it's got to really help our program if I want to use it.
Yeah, I think there's really a fine line. There's a fine line between tough and stupid. You can't not have any technology, but you shouldn't have all the technology if you don't have the resources, personnel to help you. One of the things that I've noticed in being in this space is technology is great, but maybe 5% of it is wrong. Spikes, sensors are not always perfect. And then there's such a process to get that 5% out. And if you don't get that 5% out, what you're actually looking at doesn't even matter. It's just off. Have you observed anything like with just data being wrong, flag spikes, and it's like, God, I would rather just go with my gut right now?
Yeah, I actually, I have 2 master's degrees. One is in exercise science, and then the other one is in data science. So I went back and I wanted to get another one to learn more about the science and the statistics. And so much of it is just cleaning the data, making sure it's quality. We have GPS units, we work with those, and they're very often to have a spike. Like it'll say somebody ran 32 miles an hour. You did not run faster than a car, buddy. Like, I love you, I'm sorry, and then you go back and you check the time, and it's the transition from going outside to inside. It's like, okay, you lost some GPS signal and it said you ran 32. So we're just going to clean that out. That's not part of your data set. So that's part of the issue. And then the other part is really hard with this. You could collect so much information, and it's filtering what is a signal and then what is the noise. There's a lot of noise that you can collect, but the things that you track and measure should be meaningful. And you can say, if this number's going up, this is a good thing. Or if this number's going down, we need to change something here. But I think sometimes we collect everything because we can. Force plates are cool because they measure so many things. But a lot of that stuff is unnecessary, or not unnecessary, but you're not using it to make a difference in your program. So why are you collecting all that information? If you're going to collect it, make sure it's meaningful, make sure it's useful.
Right. And that probably goes into when you're having those conversations about where you want to be at the end of the summer. Hey, like, let's only track we're really going to be focused on these 3 metrics. We don't need to track 30 of them, but we're going to really refine it down to these 3 metrics and say, hey, this is what we're going to be using to quantify if we're getting better, quantify success, quantify if we need to adjust. So I think that's a huge point when really trying to filter out the noise, still use the data, but at the end of the day, we've been using, strength conditioning coaches have been doing this for decades without the technology. So again, it's that fine line, but really good insight there.
There's so much that goes into it too, especially a sport with as many people as football. It's hard to say why a team is better or worse than the year before. I looked at our numbers from 2023 versus 2024, and our vertical jump as a team went down a little bit over the summer. So was 24 a bad summer compared to 23? Well, when you go back and look at the data, we had 5 extra linemen and 5 less skill players. So when you factor like that in, trade a bunch of 180-pound guys for 300-pound guys. 300-pound guys aren't going to jump as high. So they pulled our average down. It's not necessarily like that the team was worse. It's just a different makeup and a different, that's how the team would come together. So that's the other thing too, is sometimes we get so obsessed and, oh man, the metrics aren't going the way we... Take a step back and look at the bigger picture, and that's the hardest thing to measure is success. There's no one number you can look at and say, all right, this success. Even winning, you can win, but sometimes that doesn't mean you're successful. There's hidden things behind the scenes. Everything's going great when you're winning, but maybe there's things behind the scenes that are going to come back to bite you in the long run. So
right,
it's hard to measure success.
Big time, especially because a guy might increase 20 pounds on the bench press. Is that successful? Yes, but does that actually accomplish what you need to accomplish on the field? And overall, does that equate to wins? Does that equate to him making a play? How do you judge that, not just based off of one metric of maybe actual weight?
Right.
That's awesome. This is a good segue into our next segment. This brings us to our sudden change, brought to you by Nico Stones. You don't need 100 pieces to look put together. You just need the right ones. Nico Stones relaunched with an Essentials collection that's all about everyday style. Think bold textures, smooth lines, and pieces that just work. Whether you're dressed up or keeping it simple, go take a look. It's all live now at nicostones.com. Okay, so we've been talking a lot from the coach's perspective, planning, programming, managing, but now let's flip to the athlete's point of view, especially at the high school level. One of the things that keeps coming across the board is speed. Coaches are recruiting almost track guys because they know it's a little bit easier to add size in the weight room, but raw speed is a lot harder to teach. And for those high school athletes out there listening, what are some of the things that they should be doing right now to truly get faster to impact their on-field performance?
I think the best thing you can do if you're a high school player, you're working out, you're training, you're getting ready over the summer, I think the best thing you can do is put your cleats on and go to the field every single day. There's too many kids that the lifting stuff sometimes is easy, right? Because you get to go to Planet Fitness, you get to have your sleeves off, you get to try and impress some people, get your buys and tries in. That stuff's not hard. The hard stuff is doing the conditioning so that you're in great shape and you can go practice every day and practice hard. And then doing the speed work and putting your foot on the gas and running as hard as you can and being out of breath. And those are the things that, and it's hot out compared to maybe air conditioned inside. And that's the things that people don't want to do. But putting your cleats on every day and going out and changing it up, right? It's not just doing the same workout every single time you're doing it. But, we dedicate 3 days a week to speed work. And that means, we're going to run really hard, whether we're timing it, right? If you have somebody with a stopwatch timing it or not, we're still going to run hard. And then we're going to give plenty of rest and recovery in between because we want to make sure that we're developing speed, not conditioning. Now, we'll have still 2 days a week that are conditioning focused. And then at those times, it's okay to be a little bit slower because you're going to be out of breath and all that. But finding a way to every day to get outside and work on your speed is such a huge thing. You can go more into detail if you want on that, or
no. Let's go into with college. The college landscape rapidly changing right now. It's almost becoming a lot harder for high school athletes to get to the next level with roster sizes being cut down. JUCO doesn't count as years. Even we're talking about 15, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, it looks a lot different than it does today. What are some of the things now that they can do to help their resume almost to share, hey, I am this fast. I am doing X, Y, and Z on the field. Is it track? Is it combines? Like, how can they boost their resume in a sense?
So I think the number one thing you can do to boost your resume is become a better football player, right? At the end of the day, and the reality for a lot of these high school kids is now they're not just competing for a roster spot against other high schoolers. They're still doing that, but they're also competing against, do we fill this spot with a high schooler or do we go look in the transfer portal for somebody who's already played games before and have them come in? And so it's even harder now to get on a college team and get on a scholarship. So number one thing you do is become a better football player. It doesn't matter how much you lift and it doesn't matter how high you can jump. If you can't make plays and your game tape it's not something coaches want to see and they're like, I'm not impressed by this, then you're not going to make it past the first step. So falling in love with watching film and learning how to be in the right places and right positions and then making plays is going to be the first thing you can do. The other thing you can do obviously is train hard, do that in the summer. If you're a multi-sport kid, play multiple sports. I think that's awesome. I think that's a little bit more of a New England thing up here is playing multiple sports because you can't really do winter football and spring football. And then when you're going to camps and stuff, that's an opportunity to shine as well. So if there are summer camps, we do one where we have like a fastest man competition and we set it up. And I'll tell you, like the kid who wins the fastest man competition at our camps gets recognized. Like our coaches see that, especially if you're a kid with an elite level speed. So going to camps is definitely still a way that you can show out. But after that, you got to make sure you have your film and you got to make sure that you're making plays on tape.
What are your thoughts on track and field in the springtime? Is that a big boost to not only just their resume, because now you have qualified numbers, but you're training to be fast. Like you are training to sprint, and now when you get to those camps, you have a fastest man. Like you've been there, you've been racing all spring, and now you're there. How important is that? Have you seen that in a lot of athletes, or is it kind of just there's no correlation?
So I say this with all of our multi-sports because I get in a lot of arguments in the winter that football players should do wrestling in the winter. They think that's a great, and don't get me wrong, I think wrestling is a great sport. I wrestled in high school as well. It is very dependent on your school and your school situation. Same thing with track and field, doing track and field in the spring. If you have a great track program and they're known for making kids faster, and you have an opportunity to show up and compete, that's what being on the track team shows is like, you're not afraid to run fast and you're not afraid to compete and you're a gamer. Now, if you go to those practices and you're like, this is not helping me, this is not making me faster, then maybe that's not the best thing for you. So I think there's a lot of really good track coaches out there. I think there's a lot of really good wrestling coaches out there that make you better at your sport. But if it's a wrestling practice where all they do is run and grind you out, like, do I want my big guys going to doing that? Like maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they're better off taking a semester or taking a season off and lifting weights and things like that. I'm a big proponent of multi-sport as long as it's the right thing for you and your situation, because at the end of the day, it shows that you're a gamer. It shows that you love to compete. It doesn't mean I think this is a big thing multi-sport kids have a hard time with. You still need to train. You still need to work out. You've just put more on your plate, which is, honestly, you're getting ahead of the game, because in college, that's what it is. College is a loaded plate from your freshman year until you graduate. So,
right. I really like the wrestling for the inside guys. We had a couple weeks ago, we had Coach Dom Zanat, who's a big track and field guy, talking about the skill positions. And if you look back at the NFL guys right now, the Tyreek Hills of the world, they were all-state track people in high school. But now when you look at maybe the inside guys, like the Ray Lewises of the world, the Brian Urlachers, they were all-state in wrestling. And that's what they did. And they probably didn't really run track that much, but it really showed that they were able to get low, compete one-on-one, best man wins on the wrestling mat. I didn't even think about that. That's a huge point of action, especially for O-line, D-line, big skilled type of guys. The conditioning that you get in wrestling, a lot of the moves, go in a tackling and a blocking. I think that's a great point. Let's segue into your Gridiron Warrior program. What is that, and how did you kind of create that?
Yeah, so, I help a lot of football coaches. I have a lot of friends that are high school coaches, high school football coaches. They're not necessarily strength coaches. And they ask me, hey, what should I be doing in the summer with our kids? I see what you're doing, and, it looks awesome, looks like great stuff, but, this may not be something I can do with my kids, or it's something I need to do for a summer program. I've heard a lot of coaches say as well is they have a hard time getting their kids to come out for summer training because their kids prefer one-on-one personal training somewhere else, or they just don't want to come out and do the workouts in the summer. And they're high school kids. They want to enjoy their summer. They want to go to the swimming hole or whatever. So I created this program, a 12-week summer program that covers everything that they need to know to get ready for the football season. So there's lifting stuff in there for sure, but a lot of it is the speed work. How do you get better at the first 5 yards? How do you get better at top speed? How do you get better at changing direction? Conditioning, which in my opinion, there's a lot more than just running, right? There's running, but there's contact prep, which is kind of getting ready for collisions and impact, and especially for the big guys, how to push and pull bodies, kind of like the wrestling that we talked about earlier. And then there's football drills and situations you can put the kids in as part of your conditioning to get them better with football IQ as they get ready to start practices in sometime in August. So instead of just running until they puke, there's better ways to get in shape. So let's put them in drills and situations that'll make them better football players. So, I always say, do you want to be a weight room warrior, or do you want to be a gridiron warrior? And Gridiron Warrior has all aspects of training, not just the weight room stuff. So that's how it came to be. And we've had probably over 300 schools across the country reach out, purchase the program, implement it. And, some schools already have really good strength programs. So they're just grabbing, ideas and bits and pieces. And that's awesome. I love that. And there's a handful of schools out there that run the whole thing from start to finish. They're like, this is a great program. Why would we change anything? And I appreciate that. So it's awesome to see that, because part of the reason I put the whole thing together is because I grew up and I didn't know any better. And I did a lot of dumb things. And I said, man, if I was in high school, I would do things a lot differently these days. And this is my attempt to give that back and say, okay, here's a better way to do things.
Big time, especially for high school coaches that, don't have two masters when it comes to this kind of stuff and haven't been strength conditioning coaches. They're great high school coaches, but sometimes it's just awesome having that, professional plan, that curated plan, that tested plan from an expert in the field. I think that's huge. So when they get this program, is it like a PDF? Is it like a portal? What can they kind of expect if they sign up for the program?
Yeah, so it starts with obviously a 12-week program, and I give a hard copy. Like I said, I'm old school, so I got the PDF copy, and that includes all 5 days. Again, 3 days of speed, 2 days of conditioning, so all 5 days on the field, and then it includes I gave you two different programs. I gave you a 3-day in the weight room and a 4-day program in the weight room. So you can kind of decide, okay, I want to do the 5 days on the field with 3 days in the weight room, or 5 days on the field, 4 days in the weight room. So I give one program plus 2 lifting programs. You plug and play as you see fit. But then for the coaches, the other piece I give them is an entire educational course that goes with it. So step by step, we're going to break the program down, and I'm going to go over every single drill. However, there's 200 something drills in there. I'm going to explain how to set it up, how to do it, how to execute it, but then also the bigger picture of why we might be doing acceleration drills on Monday. Why does it make more sense to do this on Monday compared to Wednesday? Why are we pairing horizontal plyos with acceleration? Again, these are all things that, like you said, I've been doing this for a long time. I've kind of figured this out. And if you're a high school coach and you want to learn more about it, I'm trying to give you a little bit of an abbreviated version of the thought process and the why behind the program. But if you don't have time for that, at least you have the program and you're ready to rock and roll. And then the one thing I did do differently for this one, because this is I re-updated it after a couple of years, is we got it on the phone too. So now the coach can go on the phone, and if they forget a drill or they forget what it's supposed to look like, they can quickly go into the program, they can find the video, they can watch it, kind of give themselves a refresher, and then they can go out and run it with their kids. So, it's kind of all in there. It's one of those things, I'll give you the fish, but I'm also going to teach you how to fish too if you're interested in learning how to fish.
Yeah, I think that's huge because so many high school coaches, they go to coaching clinics and almost do what you just said when it comes to bag drills and actual football position-specific drills. But now having this other piece on how to get faster, the acceleration, the on-field summer workouts, to be able to have that, I think is really big. Is there any other maybe learning platforms, or if I'm a high school coach that wants to learn more about strength conditioning, where should I go to start? Is it YouTube? Is there strength conditioning conventions? Is it like what would your advice be on just to start learning more about this?
Yeah, so a lot of the football conferences that are out there will usually have, and it's getting better, is a little strength conditioning section. So there might be 5 lectures going on about offense, 5 of them going on about defense, 1 or 2 going on about special teams, and then there might be one strength coach there presenting as well. Pop into that one. You don't need to watch another one about, setting up your 4-2 defense. Like you've seen enough of those lectures. Go to the one that you haven't seen, the strength conditioning stuff there. I think the other place you can reach out to, there's a couple different organizations in terms of credentials. So if somebody has these credentials, they're pretty solid. But the National High School Strength Coaches Association, I think it's NHSCCA. That's it's growing. It's new. But that's the organization. If you want to be a high school strength coach, you can just be a high school strength coach, right? But if you have that certification and you have that organization behind you for credentials, it's kind of the step in the right direction. And they're doing a good job of putting out information and content and resources to help coaches out there. So that would be my recommendation.
That's awesome. Coach, I really appreciate you coming on here. You shared a lot of good insights from the coach's perspective, player's perspective. It's not just about being a weight room guy, it's not just about being a track guy. It's about being a gridiron guy, because what you put on that field is bottom line actually what matters. So, Coach, where can people find you at and follow some of the great stuff that you got going on?
I put a ton of stuff out on social media. So if you follow me, Scott Leech 72 or Leech 72, it's some combination of that on Twitter and Instagram. I'm always trying to put information out there that is either going to hype our guys up, right? I love showing off our kids. They work their butts off. So, why wouldn't I hype them up and get videos out there of them? But then put out information that I think is valuable and things that I think are going to make people better. I'll try and share as much as I can. And then, you find those, then you'll find my other stuff there. Obviously, I have that Gridiron Warrior program I talked about, but, I got a couple other courses too if there's certain things that coaches are interested in learning more about. But yeah, I think social media is the easiest place to find me.
That's awesome. Yeah, folks, I found Coach Leech on social media, and I was really blown away by some of the stuff that he's posting, and that's where I found him. So definitely worth a follow. Definitely worth you going to check him out. That's it for this episode of the Gridiron Unfiltered. Be sure to subscribe to the Fan Day Nation so you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.